Hello, welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. I am Jackie, and I am forever faithful. Hope you all are doing good today. I just want to talk about something that I've experienced on many occasions, and that is living in a multiverse. Some people believe it, some others do not. But when you've had some experiences like myself, you know that there's something that is going on. The whole idea is that there's just not one universe, there's not one world, that there are multi universes and parallel, um, yeah, worlds, basically. So, from my experience, I know this to be true, where there are parallel universes that is very similar to this one that we are currently living in, that I'm living in at least. And there's the one next to it. It's very similar, but there's a few things that are a little off. Um, like, for instance, there was this store that I would frequent often in a busy area, busy plaza. I went there, bought some things, and then 30 days later, the store didn't even exist at all. There was another store there. Um, and I was so perplexed because there was no going out of business sales, signs. Even when I was in the store 30 days prior, um, there was no signs like the store was going out of business. So I didn't understand what was going on. But the store that was in this place was a store I would not go in, um, because I do not celebrate this holiday. And um, the the feeling I got from looking at this store was very eerie. I knew something was wrong. I knew that somehow I had switched, jumped to another world, parallel universe. And I wasn't alone. I had a friend with me, and she didn't know what to think of it. Um, she didn't live here, but she was just visiting. But the simple fact that I had proof that I was there 30 days prior really had us both like, what the heck is going on? There's been times um, when I would get up in the middle of the night to use the restroom. And on average, I'm talking about maybe 2 minutes max, if that. But this one particular time, I came from out of the bathroom, returned to bed, but the time had completely changed the entire hour. Let's say I got up and went to use the restroom, let's say at 3 a.m. When I returned to bed, it was about 4:30 a.m. So somewhere between 3 a.m. and 4:30, I was somewhere else. But for me, it seemed like it was just 2 minutes or less. I went to bed. I could not go back to sleep right away because I'm trying to figure out what the heck happened. Where was I for the past hour and a half? Okay, another time I went to the grocery store and doing my shopping, and I remember distinctly buying eggs. I had eggs in the cart. I remember putting it on the conveyor belt. I remember paying for the eggs, along with other things, right? But but when I got home and I started to take my groceries out of the bags, there was no eggs. So I'm thinking, did it fall out? Did I leave it in the car? What happened? whatever. And so I went to the car. I checked my car. There was no eggs at all in my bag. So came back in. I checked everything, all the bags again, no eggs. And I was like, I know I bought those eggs. I pulled them out of the refrigerator, put it in my cart. I paid for it and bagged them up and came home. So between the time I left the grocery store and the time I got home, something happened. Something happened to those eggs. And the thing is, the eggs wasn't even on the receipt at all. There was no sign of me paying for eggs. No, I was not drunk or high or anything like that, under any influence of anything. So I'm like, okay, I must have jumped or switched somehow. I did that. There's been another time when I was going to run an errand, and I'm leaving my complex, and I was I was driving through the complex, but I was looking in my rear view mirror just to see if anybody was behind me. There was no one behind me, but what I noticed that there were extra buildings that doesn't belong. I'm like, this is weird. Like it completely shocked me, puzzled me, because I'm like, what is going on? I stopped the vehicle. I looked out my window just to see if these buildings, extra buildings, were there, but they were not when I looked out the actual window. But when I looked in the mirror, the rear view mirror, those buildings, those extra buildings were there. That was very disturbing, to say the least. I mean, I was just like, what the heck is going on? I remember also another time, I've lost time so often, so many situations, not only at night, in the middle of the night, but also during the day as well. I remember sitting at my desk one time working on something, and literally, it was maybe around 1:30 when I started working. Next thing I know, it's like 4 something. I'm like, what? There's 3 hours missing. I know sometimes you can get engrossed in your work, so consumed, so focused in your work that time passes so quickly, but that was not the case. Not this time. I'm like, what happened to over 3 hours of my time? Another time, this involved someone else. He's an old friend. He would say, yeah, I used to come and visit you at your house. You know, he described the house. It was an unusual house. And I'm like, how could that be? He was like, I mentioned this to you before. And I'm like, yeah, but I thought you was talking about, you know, the brick house, right? I met this person when I was in college through someone else, through a friend of mine. So he was like, yeah, you know, he would come with my college classmate and visit me. He described the house to a T. And I was like, that's impossible. He was like, no, I came to visit you. We both came to visit you at this house. And I said, that is impossible. He said, no, it's possible. We came. He was like, I'm not lying. So he was very adamant about that he came along with my college classmate to visit me at this house. The problem is, I I moved away from that house when I was about 16 years old. And I didn't meet him until I was in college, which was around, I was 21, 22 years old. The house had already been torn down right after we moved from the house. So it's not like he would have ever seen the house physically. Um, he's never seen any of my family photos, he or my classmate. But the simple fact that he could literally describe a house that I lived in from the ages of 5 to 16 in detail that no longer existed physically was mind-blowing. So for a while that really bothered me that he knew that he had visited me there. And I'm like, it's not that I didn't believe him. It was like, how is this possible? Over the years, I realized that it's a possibility that this happened in another universe. It happened somewhere else where we both existed. I existed there, but it's crazy because, again, I left the house, moved away from that house when I was 16, and then it was torn down. But I didn't meet him until I was like 21, 22, living in a completely different house. Also, there's been times, a family event. The entire family was there. We was celebrating a milestone, and then years later, I received an invitation. About 4 years later, I received an invitation for the same family event, celebrating the same milestone that we had celebrated 4 years prior. But when I began to ask some of the family members that were there at the first celebration, they looked at me like I was crazy. It's like, no, that didn't happen. And I'm like, yes, it did. And I started describing, what was going on, what people were wearing, details of that event, where it was, everything. And it's like, no, I don't remember that. That didn't happen. No, that was this event. It was this celebration. I'm like, no, it wasn't. That wasn't it. So there was only one other family member that actually remembered the event, that the very first one, as I did in detail. Because we both were like, we've already had this celebration. We've already had this family event to celebrate this milestone. So what the heck is going on? Somewhere in another universe, that event happened. And then it happened again in this 4 years later. There's been many times that I have, excuse me, I'm just reading my notes, didn't want to forget anything. But there's been so many things like this that have happened to me that I can't even tell it all. But the simple fact that we are living in a multiverse is true. I even remember, I just saw over the weekend that Richard Simmons, the aerobics guy, he just passed away recently. but I distinctly remember him passing away years ago. Similar to um, the Mandela effect, when Mandela died, and others said, he died years prior. It's very similar. I remember Richard Simmons dying years ago, but they saying that he died. I remember him dying twice, to be honest with you. I mean, literally twice. And now this is third time. This weekend I saw on the news that he had passed away. So these things happen. Um, it'll make you think that you're going crazy, but you're not. Just know that, excuse me, that multi-universes do exist. They are very similar to this one, but there are some things that are a little off, a little different. And sometimes you may, like I have, sense that something is off. It feels a little different, right? There's been times I've been down streets I've traveled many times in my lifetime, but I will take the street, but it looks so unfamiliar to me. Not only are they, tearing down buildings and rebuilding stuff, building up stuff, but just the whole vibe, just, it was totally different than what I recall. Yeah, that's pretty much what I wanted to share. That I live in multi universes, and I think a lot of people may be having these experiences that think that they are going crazy, losing their mind, or something like that, but you're not. That you're possibly jumping and switching over to other universes without even knowing it. So you're not crazy. You're just traveling in ways that you probably didn't even expect. Anyway, that's all I wanted to share. My throat is a little dry and scratchy, so I'm gonna get off. But yeah, it's just something I want to share with you all. I just feel like I'm not alone, and there are others out there that may be experiencing this. Just know that you're not crazy, that it actually happens. Anyway, that's it for now. And until next time, take care of yourselves. Bye.